4, 3, 2, 1. And welcome everybody to the Saint Seiya Cosmocast. I'm your host Ramses, and per usual, I have here Jackie.
Meow. Hello, everybody.
Meow meow to you too. And also we have here Pegasus.
Hello, everybody.
This week is kind of this week. We're covering a lot of things involving the upcoming Saint Seiya concert. A couple of new releases are coming out in Mexico. A discovery I discovered through the donathon that I was doing last week. If you were part of that, and we're going to be doing our episode discussion. So first and foremost, let me start off by saying, let me give my apologies first as before we even start. I said 87 to 91. I'm an idiot. It's 86 to 89. So if you watch 86 to 90, if you watch it, if you're part of those people that have been watching those episodes, my bad. So, oh boy, as time, I guess because I was so I know what must have happened. I did the image like preemptively. I knew that I did the image way before we started, and I kind of and I didn't have the numbers in my brain, and I must have went up a number, and I kind of went up a number incrementally. That's what ended up happening. That I just put in one more because I was distracted by other things. I think I did that. I think I made that just after the day after we got done recording the podcast. So it was. So I was still kind of out of it. And I was also had I wanted to do. On the fly I had to do a lot of other stuff as well. So, I'll talk about a little bit about the donathon and how that went later. The first, why don't we go into our first bit of news, which is a little bit of merchandise that's gonna be coming out for this Pegasus Fantasy 2 concert. Jack, you have all that information with you. Why don't you lead us off with that?
Alrighty. So, Anime Music Labs, which is the company essentially handling the concert, really is doing a pre-sale of some of the merch that will be available for purchase at the concert as well, in the hopes to somewhat curb line cons that will unfortunately happen. It is what it is. It's a concert.
Mm-hmm.
This is also gave us a preview of some of the new merch we can expect, and from what we're seeing is there's some merch available from the first Pegasus concert. So this is a really good chance of, if you, like me, if you couldn't go last year, you'll get to grab some of that swag as well.
Was there anything in particular that caught your attention?
Oh, I won that Nova with the fire god. Yeah, and this is actually based off there was a notebook last year that's light up, and it lights up the logo of Caballeros del Zodiac, which I thought was pretty cool, but I was like, not. I was like 90% sold on it. So they made a new version of that, but this one it features it's more like it's the Zodiac and the fire clock. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'm sold. I'm definitely gonna get that one. It looks so cool.
And what's great is that that's actually part of the very basic bundle. There's so much merchandise here. I'm showing off the gold here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch. I'm showing off the gold one, which has a t-shirt, a sweater,
hoodie with Saga.
Yeah, so a hoodie with Saga, so the bag, the notebook, some clear files, and a mug.
Yeah. I did a little research on the merch from last year because that info got taken, but I found anyway that it looks like they made 2 new t-shirts for this year. I don't know if the hoodie is new or if that was available last year. Because you have the merch from last year. What can you tell us?
I actually do. I'm actually sharing right now a picture of all the loot that I got on last year's concert. That, if I'm not mistaken, was basically everything that they gave and was available for purchase as well last year. basically, the primary things that caught everybody's attention were the swag bags, which are like I've never liked that particular word, swag. It's not my thing. I'm an old man. Anyways, but
Wait, oh, okay,
the
hold on,
cool
hold
thing.
on, hold on. Just to clarify, we call them swag bags.
Oh,
Swag. 'Cause you're getting
swag.
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 Sorry.
Swag.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Pardon me, younglings. I'm not in tune with the it of
Yeah,
today.
that's fine. Anyways, keep going, keep going.
Well,
Okay.
the bag is definitely the coolest thing because you can actually carry that as the way that you carry it is not like a normal like shopping mall or
Shoulder bag.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's a shoulder bag. You carry it like a backpack,
Mm.
basically.
Backpack. Okay.
And it basically gives the impression that you're carrying one of the Pandora's boxes. It gives that illusion.
Oh, that is
And
so
it's actually
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah, because you carry it on the back and it's actually very comfortable to wear as well. So those bags are actually pretty cool. Last year they only had two models, one with the bronze saints and another with the gold saints, but these designs were the ones made by oh god, I always forget his name. The person who did the designs for Omega.
Um, um, I forgot the
Mitri
name.
Jimeno? No.
No,
No, no,
no.
no, no, no. No,
He,
this is the character designer for Saint Seiya Omega, which had nothing
Mhm.
to do with Araki Pro.
yeah, it
But,
was
but basically, the character designs on based on
Ukamoshi.
the designs, yeah, of him, and so
Yoshihiko Ukamoshi. I love his artwork so much. But keep going.
yeah, like his art is really good. Don't get me wrong, but they did not use like official Araki Himeno art. Well, Himeno only for the special illustration that
Yeah.
they did that was exclusive to the people on the Gold Zone, and but they use his designs for the normal merchandising, with the exception of some of the folders. But the t-shirts and the swag bags had those designs. So for these ones, I think they're gonna actually use Araki and Jimeno designs for the actual t-shirts this time
Mm.
for the second version. But last year's merchandise used those designs, and still, regardless, that the merchandise last year was really cool and really good. So I'm hoping that the things that they're giving for this one as well match the quality of last year because it was very good quality, those items.
So it looks like the hoodie is new then.
Yes, the hoodie is new. They did not give a hoodie last year.
Okay. That's what I wasn't sure about. I thought I heard mentions of a hoodie, but I had no idea if that was from last year. Okay, so that's definitely brand new. There's two new t-shirts this time. There's if you buy the gold sets, what you're getting is the Goldies t-shirt and the Goldies. Actually, it's actually I think an exclamation mark because it's the two the Goldies and the surplus Saburi. I can't say it.
Surplus is fine.
Surplices. That's the problem when you're trying to speak in English, but you're reading in Spanish, and there's also English in this thing.
It happens. It happens.
Okay, but yes. Um, so definitely bronze, new bronze mug, new bronze T-shirt. The bags looks like it's the same designs as last year, unless they pop that there's new designs for because I haven't really seen anything else mentioned. So I don't know if this is definitive going to be all the merch or if there's gonna be more featured. I'm assuming it might be, but there's a chance it could be. Say, hey, we still got new stuff that was gonna be exclusive to only buying here. What is? Oh, they added a new version of the Fire Clock t-shirt. Essentially, they just changed the color. Last year's was purple. This year's like a light blue, which matches that really cool notebook.
So yeah, I put up the pictures of of Pegasus swag that he got from last year's concert. It should be on screen if you're watching us on Twitch or on YouTube's. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here that is that's right here. And like I said, yeah, this one's leaning more to the Michi Meno designs, and this one's then all these Yoshihiro Ukamoshi designs with this one. Which like I said, like Ukamoshi, I love his artwork. He's worked on a lot of great animes I love. But I can tell too. It's like yeah, like like I understand too, like why they would need to change it up. And probably too at the time too, like there were a lot of control art that they were like control a lot of like the promo art was was Ukomeshi's art at the time. So I'm pretty sure they're transitioning to more of Michi Himeno art for like all the stuff going forward. But yeah. I guess it looks. There's also one thing I didn't. There's also one thing I didn't talk about with this. There's 2 pins. There's a 2-pin set in that gold one, but we don't have pictures of that, unfortunately.
That's right. I almost forgot.
So, but Bekas, do you have any thoughts on the new stuff? I know you're showing off. I know we showed off a lot of the old stuff, but do you have anything from the new stuff that you're interested in discussing?
Well, the thing is, like, I think that it's difficult when it comes to merchandising to kind of like get out of that comfort zone of making like new items that are too different. Some people could probably argue that like, oh, they're just giving the same things, even if it's just even if it's a different design. Like, oh, they're just giving the things that they gave away last year. But regardless, it's a circumstance of like that type of items. Unless you buy them second on the second-hand market, which always kind of makes dubious like what quality you're going to receive it in. If you were not able to purchase them at the time, be it due to the fact that you were not able to attend the first concert, or because maybe you were a little bit short financially, and you couldn't afford to get most of these things, it's always good to have like that same offer on hand. And if you have the opportunity to acquire some of these items, it's definitely something worth getting, especially because the quality of the items themselves is really good. I have all, as shown on screen, all those items. I got them for myself. It was somewhat expensive, and my wallet's gonna cry again on this concert, but it's definitely worth having that merchandise, especially because it's something very unique, because it's official merchandise. It's actually licensed merchandise, like it's Toei licensed
Which is
merchandise.
practically almost unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like for certain franchises getting that merchandise in, for example, in the US or other countries, here as well, like it's somewhat of a normal thing. But specifically talking about Saint Seiya, it's odd getting official merchandise like this, especially in Latin America. So it gives it a value that's worth investing in. So like I am, as for the new items, I'm looking forward to seeing the pins, which I think is part of the Divine Zone package that I'm
Oh,
going to be receiving. Oh, and I think they're also going to be available as for sale, like independently, like for the regular people that for the people that got the onto the other zones. I mean, and I think the mug as well, because I'm not, I'm probably going to try to get 2 of those. It's one that I can just have without taking it out of the box forever and ever, and another that I can actually use for my coffee.
hey man, do what you need to do. That especially for that sweet Java in the morning. But
Yeah.
but yeah, like I said, like for me, like even like the very basic things look so cool because it's like they're one is cheap, but like they offer so much value for 100 pesos, and 400 pesos we're calculating is like $23 rounding off, and that's very good. That's a very good value for everything you're getting for $23. You're getting a notebook, you're getting some clear files, and a really cool bag. So
You're
that's
getting the some of the merchandise you may have missed out on. So yeah.
so it's like so like I said, even if you're going for like the lower value stuff, it's still well worth your money because it's so much you're getting, and like you mentioned, like I said, it's stuff that's only exclusive to this concert, and it's official Saint Seiya merch. Like who doesn't want more Saint Seiya merch in their lives? So is there any final thoughts on this stuff, Jackie?
Give me that notebook. And sure, I was a little bit on the fence, but sure, I can use another coffee cup. I like my coffee with cabu.
We all
Yeah,
do.
I know. I really think it looks great. The mug too.
Oh yeah, it looks really good.
I think most it's in the item. The t-shirts are around 400 pesos. So even if you have to like pick 3 items, I think they're I mean, for a concert t-shirt, $22. I don't think that's bad at all because they can go for outrageous price just because it's the concert merch. So I definitely give them that they made the merch is reasonably priced.
So also too they have 3 different designs for the t-shirts. They have a design for just the Bronze Saints, they have one with all the gold saints, and they have one with the flame with the clock tower with the flame that's on the clock. So and you can get a bundle of those three. You can get a bundle of those three for 150 Mexican pesos, which is like, let's just say like a little under $20.
That's just more or less, yeah.
That's
it would be
actually
actually really good, because I remember when I went to a Hatsune Miku concert, like just the freaking like hoodie was more than $60. Just one thing.
Oh, it's $85, but that's still a great value because it is something that you're paying. It's like it's concert exclusive, and they have like unique designs. So it's like, yeah, you're like.
Well, I didn't buy it then. I bought it 2 years later at an Anime Expo, and I got like for $60. I got pretty much everything that was available at the concert.
Okay, that's what happened.
No, but it was actually that's what happened. That was the leftover merch.
Yeah, but it's always a gamble, right? Because you never know if it's gonna be there eventually.
Yeah, no, I was lucky that year I went to Anime Expo, but that was a side stuff. But if you have to go for the low budget, if you want to get the most, definitely get that. Even if you're unable to buy the bundle set right now, that merch is probably gonna be available at the concert. So
I'm pretty sure too they'll put up some of the things, like I'm pretty sure they'll put up some like they'll put up some afterwards after the concert, but again we wouldn't know. But any final thoughts, Bangkok, on the merchandise?
Just to say that I'm prepared to bleed a little bit of money for this one, but it'll be worth it.
Alrighty then. Just speaking of merch, that should be out around the time the concert should hit. Bangkok, you were talking about that Panini. They're about to put out the final issue of Saint Seiya Show, volume 16, I believe, right?
Yes, indeed, correct. Saint Seiya Show's final volume, volume 16, finally comes out here in Mexico. The series has been ongoing since, I don't remember exactly when they started publishing, but basically all previous 15 volumes have been published up until now. Volume 16, which came, I think it was last year when it was published in Japan, obviously due to licensing and deals and behind the scenes stuff that the company has to do in order to acquire the licenses for them. It took a little bit of time for that volume to arrive. It was actually supposed to arrive around March, well, on spring of this year, but better late than never, right? And finally, it gives closure to Saint Seiya Show in specifically in Mexico, and I think in other parts of Latin America that get the stuff that we get. But yeah, basically, finally, we have a closure to Saint Seiya Show here.
Yeah, and it's especially weird because like for the first time, the United States, the United States of America, we got that final issue way before you guys did. So thankfully, you guys are finally get over that hump. So
yeah, there's nothing. It's like the worst. Like if you're in that limbo of like something happened, is this just gonna be finished? And it's the damn last volume.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm glad that's gonna be completed over there.
So yeah.
Oh, I was checking. It's supposed to come at around the 15th of September. In the second half, the first half of the month is over. That's around when it's gonna be coming out.
All right. Also,
or you can purchase it at stores. Though, interesting notice, actually looking at the website for Panini in Mexico, the volume online is sold out.
Oof.
That's it. I'm glad people want to buy Saint Seiya Show.
Well, not just that, it's just the power of Saint Seiya in general. Don't underestimate the power of Saint Seiya. And like, I was gonna say, like, I guess it was through good timing that this all is happening around the same week-ish that the concert's happening, I guess. So good on them.
Yeah.
Since this was a quick note, I really want to talk about one quick thing, or rather, this might be a thing that's gonna take up a little bit of the episode here. Okay, so all right. So first and foremost, let me thank everybody who's listening or who's on the Twitch or watching us on YouTube. I'd like to say thank you so much for supporting the Donathon. It was a great Donathon. I had so much fun watching some old TV shows from that I used to grow up with. I used to what I basically did was I basically watched NintendoMania. And because you and me used to go to Mexico, so very well NintendoMania. hopefully. And if you those of you who don't know, NintendoMania was a TV show that used to air on TV Azteca, and it was produced by the same team that were working on the Nintendo, like the Mexican equivalent of Nintendo Power Club Nintendo. And like one of the head editors, and the head editors was the host of the show, Gus Rodriguez, and it was fantastic show if you wanted to get into like the video game scene. It was like it was great because like I got to show them like, look, at the time we had no internet, we had no access to things like we had no access to like this, we had no Nintendo Directs, we had no things that can provide us information. So imagine getting a Nintendo Direct every week where they showed us information and they showed us some cool things from each video game. That was NintendoMania for us. And then I compare that to watching other stuff from the United States like Game Pro TV and oh god, Video Power. Oh man, the more I watched, like I should have watched that at first because like I nearly died of cringe like around hour number 11. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. But it was like I saw the time, I was like, I can do this. One more episode. I can do this. Oh god, it just gets cringier as I watch. Anyways, dramatics aside, I did find something really interesting while watching this. During the 12 hours I was watching this, I initially started with NintendoMania because I figured one, it's the one I'm going to be discussing a lot of, and it was something that like I know most of my audience that go to my streams or are watching this show or listening to the show, they're English speaking, they're only speaking or they have like no idea what's going on. So I provide a little context as to what was going on and what they were saying and stuff like that. And something caught my attention, and I posted this on Twitter, and I'll post the link to that particular tweet I made, and that is, they had an episode all about cartoon based video games, and obviously of course they talked about a lot of the video games that were based on cartoons, like American cartoons for the most part, and then they got to a really interesting segment about anime and manga and stuff like that. But before the way they transitioned into it, they were discussing Saint Seiya, Los Caballeros del Zodiaco. And one of the things that caught my attention was that they said in this particular episode that there were talks to bring a Saint Seiya game to Mexico, to the Super Nintendo. And for whatever reason, that idea fell through very early on. But it's interesting, and it would have been a rigor of an existing Dragon Ball Z game. So we could have had at one point a Saint Seiya game for the Super Nintendo. And it would have been a really weird like ROM hack of an existing Dragon Ball Z game. So yeah, I like that's interesting. That's interesting. I found out because I follow most of the fandom. I follow through like most of the things that I follow a lot of these types of things like what the fandom is discussing, and never once did that information ever like get out. So I'm interested. So it's interesting that like as I was doing something for the show, I discovered this key information that I think that was hidden like from plain sight. Like literally, it was like right in front of our noses of new information about some interesting tidbits about Saint Seiya. So I want to take it to Bangkok. You're more gaming inclined. And you had a lot of discussion. We were back and forth about this. So, what are your thoughts on this discovery?
In itself, when you actually brought this to my attention, I was blown away because obviously I did watch the show when I was a child. Like Mr. Gur Rodriguez is a very beloved icon of Mexican popular culture, particularly when it comes to the video game aspect of it. He's probably like he was very very passionate about video games, and he made a very good job in providing information that for the most part was very accurate, especially when it comes to behind the scenes stuff of things that back then you didn't know unless like you purchased all the magazines and stuff like that back in the days before the internet, as you said, and that made me feel so fucking old. But oh well, it is what it is. Anyways, when you but actually I did not. If I saw that episode, I do not remember it because this was such a long time ago, and I don't remember like the contents of every single episode mentioned there. I think that the reason why it has probably gone under the radar, so to speak, is because in the end, like the project fell through, as you mentioned, like it never got into an actual project. So probably just as a piece of trivia, like people tend to gravitate towards like obscure things, but that either got made or that are extremely popular in one very particular aspect. And I think that most of the people that like this series and not necessarily inclined too much into the video games aspect of it, because the one game that came at the height of its popularity only came out in Japan, and it came for the Famicom only. So I think it's understandable why
it was a busted mess.
yeah, so I think it's understandable why that knowledge has not like become a part of like a common knowledge when it comes to Saint Seiya fandom. But the interesting thing that Mr. Rodriguez said was that apparently he mentioned the name of the person of the Japanese man that was in charge of Toei in Latin America back then, that he is the one that actually proposed the idea for the Japanese branch. But I suppose that that's where he got the information from, because he would have been in contact with him most likely, and that's probably where he got that information from. He probably told them that they proposed the project and that unfortunately like it never came to be. But I find it interesting on the fact that when it was starting out, like even though Mexico now is considered one of the most important markets for video game for the video game industry, especially when it comes to Latin America, which I think is the country where video games are played and sold the most in all of Latin America. But back then, it was still somewhat of a new thing and of a gamble. So it was more of the impact of the branch that made them probably come to that decision. It's just a shame that I think that the reason precisely why it did not come through is because of all the resources that would have been needed to, even if it was a reskin of a different game, it's still you need resources to change all the assets onto it, and then to adapt it to a market that back then the knowledge of English was not as widespread as it is today. And this is a time where you got video games in English and that's it. Like you didn't get it localized at all. So I suppose that that's probably the reason why it did not come to be, but it is truly a shame. It's a goddamn shame that it did not come to pass, because having a Saint Seiya, not only a Saint Seiya game for the SNES, not only a Saint Seiya game that came back then in this market, but that would have been primarily almost exclusive to this market, that would have been a jewel.
Jackie, your thoughts on this bit of on this developing on this new discovery I found.
So I was looking around. So, as far as Saint Seiya games, there wasn't an actual Super NES game that ever came out in Japan. So, like you were saying, definitely there would have been a reskin. Now, one thing I'm seeing that's listed here on Wikipedia, that the first Saint Seiya game that came out, which was NES game,
the Famicom.
That actually got a localization in France.
Yes, it did. It was like
Yeah.
Lillian der Or, I believe it's called. I believe that's how they translate it.
Because it would be like the Golden Legend or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I wonder what would have been like. But I remember that. Well, back then, I actually used to play a lot of games on emulator, especially Super Nintendo games, or to say Super Famicom. So I remember there were like a lot of Dragon Ball Z, like beat 'em up fighter games. I would have, and I mean, considering that there wasn't a game like that for the any Super NES, I wonder if that would have been like an exclusive game just to Mexico, Latin America. That would have been pretty cool, because I remember people back then used to make like a lot of sprites and gifts from the games themselves. So, if anybody wants to do like a ROM hack or some kind of project like that, that would be awesome to see. I would still love to see. Because, yeah, I love to play those, like, beat 'em up games. I used to play, like, the Sailor Moon Fighter game.
Oh, you played that?
Yes,
Oh,
played on
oh
emulator.
my god!
Oh
That's
god.
like the
I've only
trend.
seen videos.
That's okay. As someone that actually has played those games, like the actual fighting games, that's like the trenches. That is like that's World War One trenches. You're knee deep into that into like the poverty zone right there, as we like to call it in the fighting game industry, in the fighting game scene, because it's like those games are broken. Those games are busted. Like literally, like those Sailor Moon games. Like you, like literally, there's like this trip. There's like, okay, let me phrase this to people that won't know. There is a concept in video games what it's called tripping, where you can just suddenly just be like, you suddenly just like slip. And that had like if you just kept on if you spam the moves, you just suddenly just whip a move like when you just it doesn't come out and you're like you just do this cute animation. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, they put this mechanic in a game that in 1994. Oh my Christ Almighty!
It's so obnoxious. I think that people probably will relate to it more. Like that move that was added into Super Smash Brothers Brawl,
Yes,
and everybody hated it. Like we hated it with a burning passion. It was so annoying to think that back then that was already a thing.
Well, you're talking to a person who just smashed buttons, so I didn't really notice it.
Thank God.
It's probably something I didn't recognize. It. I just would like the fact that I could play a game with Sailor Moon. Actually, there were several of them, and I was having fun.
That's the important part. If you're just mashing buttons and you're having fun, then you know what that's how they get you. But I want to ask you guys. I want to put this question to you guys.
Shoot.
Okay. We know that because thanks to this bit of information, we know this was going to be a Dragon Ball Z game. At this point, we would have had 5 Dragon Ball Z games. Actually, 6. We would have had the first 3 Super Butoden games, which were fighting games where you would go where you'd run around, where you'd actually like move around in an arena, and like and the unique gimmick about that is like to emulate the style of Dragon Ball Z, you can actually like you can actually get off like the parallel, you can get off like you can get out of like the where you're at and go to a different zone altogether and start spamming fireballs and all that stuff. So that was one of the games. The other games there was an RPG called Legend of the Super Saiyan, which was a carryover from the Famicom games, which in that game would have been like a game which would have covered the first 2 arcs of Dragon Ball Z, which was the Saiyan arc and then like the Namek arc where they fight Frieza, and that's an RPG. And then you have the Super Gokuden series. I believe the first. I don't know if the second game was out, but it's a duology game where basically you go through the entire story of Goku up until the Saiyan arc, and the first game covers everything from the initial parts of Dragon Ball up until the fight against King Piccolo, and the second game would have picked up from Piccolo Jr. up until the fight with Frieza. But that game is a text-heavy, like it's practically a text adventure game. It literally is like they found a way with RPG like elements where you get into fights with randomly from time to time. But for the most part, it's a lot of text.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you guys is from those games from those descriptions of the games right there, what game would you picked out to make it into a Saint Seiya game? Let's
text-heavy game.
Yeah. Pegasus, your thought?
On my end, here I actually have a funny story that I'd like, if I may share it, actually related to Butoden. Here's the thing. When I was a child, actually, my parents got me the Dragon Ball Butoden 2 game and the Butoden 3 game. I actually have them right now. I have them right now here.
Ooh.
Now, here's the thing. When I was young, I thought that it was an original game. And I just like, oh, my parents got this for me, but it was all in Japanese. So I found that odd, but I didn't question it. Many, many, many years later, I am talking with my friends about this, and I tell them, "Oh yeah, I have those games," and they tell me, like, "Dude, they're not original." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean they're not original?" It's like they only came out in Japan, smartass, and they only came for the Super Famicom. The Japanese cartridges are different, and that's when the loading screen finally like ended, and it's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." I thought my entire life I had those games that they were rare jewels, but they're just yo ho versions my parents got for me.
Hey,
they're still rare. By all, who cares?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna relate to you something that like. This is one of my favorite. Like, this is one of my favorite videos to watch. There's a video by Scott the Woz, and he says, like, okay, so he pretty much goes out and says, okay, what's the rarest game in the world? And he goes up to he talks about all the rare games like NBA 2008, which got recalled because because EA lost the rights to the NBA. So when the game was literally published, they're just T-posing players all over the place. And there's like, oh, like the games they're made by limited run games. And then there was also there's this weird game, I can't remember. It's like something like the fart game. It's like they only made like 50 copies of. And then he makes mention at the very beginning, like, yeah, but you gotta realize one thing that, it's rare games, like it's a game with a line on it, and that's like, and it's totally unique, and that's like the rarest game of all time. And then so the punchline of the entire video is, what is the rarest game known to man? It's the version of Sonic 2 that he took a silver Sharpie into, and that's the rarest game in the world. Because it's a wholly unique game. So you have a wholly unique version of the game. It's unique to you.
That is very true.
So think of it like that. But
I'm gonna have to take it like that because it was one of those things that kind of broke my heart a little bit when I found out.
Hey, you were able to play it on your Super Nintendo, right?
That is the thing, because in spite of everything, I actually played those games. I played Butoden 2 and Butoden 3. And here's the thing, even though I did not understand a single freaking thing that was going on, because I would just choose options at random, and it would get you to fight with certain characters. But the fighting aspect of it was very, very good for the time. Like, obviously now with context, with age, with all the Budokai Tenkaichis, and with all the what's the game of that of the Arc System Works fighting game that they made for
Dragon Ball Fighters?
Yeah, and with fighters, obviously it's extremely outdated by now. But back then, being able to experience that Dragon Ball game actually made me feel that I was Goku, that I was Gohan, that I was any of the characters that you could pick to play, and it was very immersive for the Dragon Ball franchise. So I think that if we could have had a Butoden game just reskinned and maybe reprogrammed a little bit to work with Saint Seiya, and we could actually have a proper decent Saint Seiya fighting game in that aspect, that would have been so awesome, man. Like it's like that's the game that I would love to see even now. Like if they made a proper 2D fighting game for Saint Seiya, that would be amazing. So my personal pick is if they could have reskinned one of the Butoden games and adapted it into Saint Seiya, that would have been a dream.
I'm gonna be the unconventional guy here. I'm gonna say the Legend of Super Saiyan, the RPG, the more traditional RPG. I think that kind of gameplay wouldn't need a lot of modifications because it was card based. So I'm pretty sure they would have done something where where a lot of the RNG aspects of the card based system would have been like mitigated to make it a lot easier. But I think that kind of game, that kind of style was starting to fits a little bit more into the Saint Seiya style of storytelling, in my opinion. And like what could it have been? And it's not uncommon for them to actually do an RPG. I know they did the Saint Paradise game for the Game Boy, which was just an RPG, and that game really, and that all the Saint Seiya games at that time, those early Saint Seiya games, that game actually really works because it was like they kind of knew that they kind of already knew at that point like what Saint Seiya they knew what Saint Seiya was going to be at that point, and two. Like the RPGs were starting to get more in vogue, and they kind of like they weren't like half-assing RPGs. They were actually kind of like they kind of understood now like the difference between those games that they made on the NES and the Famicom compared to like when the Saint Paradise game came out on the Game Boy. I believe it was the Saint Paradise game came out in '91, and while the previous games came out in '87 and '88. We had time to grow. We had time to grow as because it like I always say those like as a game person that follows a lot of video games. I said before that like a lot of games are reactionary to like whatever's out at the time. I'm very sure they saw like Zelda 2, they saw Xanadu, they saw the Dragon Slayer series from Falcom, and they're like, we want that piece of the money, and they made the Saint Seiya game. They made the free for Saint Seiya game. Then they make the second game, which is like I think like which is, it technically is like a 1.5, where they kind of like went more into the RPG aspects. And then, like I said, 91 happened. We had more Dragon Quest games. We had more Final Fantasy games. A lot more games underneath our belt to kind of like know how RPGs work. And now we got the Saint Paradise game, which was a little bit more refined, or more refined concept, as opposed to like something they ramshackled because they saw the popularity of other games. With that said, like the Gokuden series, not Gokuden series, those Legend of Super Saiyan games that led up to it for the Famicom were kind of like in that same style where they kind of didn't know what they were doing at the time. They were just kind of like doing stuff because it looked like something that was being popular in Japan at the time. But it got more refined as time went on, and that kind of style translated to making a better game at the end for Legend of Super Saiyan. So it would have been a more a pain in the ass for them to make that game. But I think that would have been a game that would have been more appropriate for the audience that they were aiming for, which was like, let's not kid ourselves. If you're watching Saint Seiya at the time and you knew English, you're playing Final Fantasy 2. You're playing Final Fantasy 4. You know, Final Fantasy 3, aka Final Fantasy 6, wouldn't be out for another year. But you're playing those games. You're playing anything that had like an RPG aspect. Like you're playing Secret of Mana. You're playing a lot of those games if you knew English and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if that was one of the games that they proposed. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they would have taken one of the Gokuden series, one of the Buddha series, and make that into a Saint Seiya game. Maybe get rid of like the arena aspect and made it more like a more one-on-one aspect, which is like, well, it's funny you mentioned that if they would have reworked the game to that, because if we were to lead to believe there was another game that came out way later in '97 for Dragon Ball called Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension, which was more of a traditional fighting game for Dragon Ball. And it's like that's like less arena-ish and more like one-on-one face-to-face type of fights. And that game's incredible. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not gonna assume that in '95 they knew that game existed. But I'm pretty sure I want to be shocked either if like that they must have saw something early on and like we kind of want to put that in our game. We kind of want to make something in that style as well. So it could be one of those three games. I doubt the Gokuden stuff would be the one that they would use, because one, it's so text heavy that it's like for them to translate a game like that would just be a nightmare for it. And you also gotta realize too, when you did these games, it was always primarily English, because they always wanted to reverse, because they were, for some reason, they never thought of like making a game purely in. They never like the concept of bringing out a game in Spanish was totally alien up until at least the PlayStation 2 era. But so a lot of games were still translated into English. So a lot of these games were still translated to English. So I'm pretty sure what must have like led to the downfall of this game was they must have saw the game. And they said, okay, we can try to do this game, but we have to adapt this into English, and we have to make sure this is not just accessible to your market, but also to like the rest of North America as well, and also like Canada as well. And I'm pretty sure that's where things kind of fell apart. And the thing is, I mentioned this in our Discord, and I mentioned this to you like before the show started. That's really uncommon. It's like it's not uncommon for Bandai to just take a game that they take to re-rigger a game into another game. They've been doing that was their meat and potatoes for most for a lot of the 8 and 16-bit era of their time on the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Famously, they took a Dragon Ball game and made it into a completely unrelated game altogether called Dragon Power, which has nothing, which like it has vaguely reminiscent things of Dragon Ball, but like you have to like look very, very closely to make sure you know it. But then there's other games like Ninja Boy, which they got converted from a game based on Gekiki no Kitaro, and just other games that were, and like even up to that point, even in 94, 95, they had re-riggered an Ultraman game to be more in line with like with one of the Ultraman games that was out, one of the Ultraman shows that was out here in the United States at the time, and of course because like they had to put Power Rangers. They took a Power Ranger game because of course that at that time you put anything with the words Power Rangers on it, it was licensed to print money. And they took a Gundam Wing game and they made it into Power Rangers the fighting game.
So amusing to think about it like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and like mechanically, it's the same game. Like I can like that's the weird part, and both games are actually they're actually kind of fun mechanically. Like they're actually fun to play. Like I don't mind going. And the even better part is like transitioning from both of those games. Seamless. Like you can play one and then you play the other games. Like wow, like it's like you don't miss a beat. But regardless, like it doesn't surprise. So I'm surprised that they were looking at all these that a lot of that stuff that was behind it, like trying to get the game to other markets was a big factor as to why they why this game got canceled. It just wouldn't be the first time they did this. I know for a fact that like there is a prototype, because I do remember this very clearly, and I posted this on other forums. At one point, they were gonna bring one of the Dragon Ball Z fighting games as just Dragon Ball to an English market. And there is like little footage. There is little like because like not little footage. Like I mean, if you count photos as footage, but we know for a fact that there was a prototype because it was covered in NintendoMania. Not covered in NintendoMania. It was covered in Club Nintendo. And that it had like English names for like for a lot of the characters. For the most part, a lot of the characters say with their names. I think the only one that was kind of weird was they called Brawly Tara. But regardless, that game there were plans of bringing it. So I'm pretty sure they saw if one of the Dragon Ball Z games was going to be converted to a Saint Seiya. I'm pretty sure that's what ended. Like I'm pretty sure they were still like thinking about it, and they were going to put up a Dragon Ball game sometime later on. Same thing with Sailor Moon. They were going to bring one of the side scroller, belt scroller games they're actually going to do the same thing where they're actually bring the game and bring it to the Latin American audience, because this was at the time when Sailor Moon had already supersided as like the new big thing, but I'm pretty sure what ended up happening was I'm pretty sure that they saw I'm pretty sure it's like because it was going to come out just in one market or such a small market, it would like putting all this effort in would have been too costly for them to do it. So
most likely,
yeah. So it's interesting. So it's interesting to see that it's interesting to see a lot of this stuff like play out as it's interesting to see how all this plays out, because it's really interesting to see what if. Any final thoughts on any of this, Jackie?
Maybe I was looking at that Saint Seiya Paradise. It looks like somebody did a ROM hack of the game into Spanish.
Mm-hmm. And
that's cool.
Yeah, like I said, it's actually a solid game. Like I said, 91. We kind of got our shit together in 91 about how an RPG should be. 86, 87, we had no fucking idea. That's why when I said when Becca mentioned those games, I was like, those games are fucking busted. Why? Because they were chasing the rainbow that was the side scroller RPG, and they just didn't know how, and they didn't have and there was no what we call a language. There was such a thing where there was no kind of refinement as to how the formula should work. And again, like people were just this was not an uncommon thing for like companies in Japan to be like, okay, we made this game. Like this game's popular. Let's make a game like that. As a matter of fact, some may argue Zelda 2 was a ripoff of Dragon Slayer from Falcom and from the PC-88. So again, we wouldn't know unless we're privy to it. But in 91, it's a little bit we kind of had an idea what we were like what RPG should play and how it should go, like, and how it should go. So who knows? Maybe there might be a stream or two coming soon about that. But
I mean, I'm not really picky with the games. I mean, I'm still thinking of the fact that back then we practically never got any like games based off, anime or manga. So I would have just taken anything. I probably still would, just because for the experience, like, there would have been more RPG text based or a proper RPG, whatever you want to call it. But honestly, just that's cool that even way back then that was something that was in the back burner, even if it never happened.
Because any final thoughts on any of this information I provided?
I just wish that I could live on that parallel universe where that game actually got made. We could probably talk about this for hours, because the idea of what could have been for a game, particularly at that time, obviously it's funny in one way because they were more limited back then, but at the same time, I think that also they were more willing to take certain risks, ironically. So who's to say, right? But the possibilities would have been very glorious, and having a piece of history like that is just something that, if it had come to pass, it would have been a wonderful thing to have, particularly for our market. But as you said, even if the option got to the people, once they started actually talking about all the logistics involved in it, that's probably where it came down. And it's completely understandable, especially at the time. The market was very new. The Latin American market in general has never been seen in a very good light by Japan. Even now, when there is evidence to the contrary, it's still not as profitable as, say, the English-speaking markets or the European markets or the other Asian parts of the market. So I completely understand on the one hand, even if it's frustrating. But yeah, it's a matter of what could have been, and it would have been something great, I'm sure. At least, maybe not great in the sense of it actually being good, but great in the sense of the historical value that it would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who knows what this figure game could have been. It could have been an RPG, could have been a fighting game. Hell, like I'm pretty sure Bandai made a lot of those weird sports games with like Godzilla. I'm pretty sure they can upconvert that to a they can upconvert that into like a upconvert that to a Saint Seiya game. Hey, who wants to play a Saint Seiya baseball game?
I'm still waiting for that Saint Seiya Otome game.
Technically speaking, there is a manga of Kurumada called Itori no Shinwa that is Seiya playing baseball. Who's to say?
Yeah. But yeah, like I already expressed a lot of this stuff, and like I said before, like, and I've repeated this in so many episodes when we talk about video games. Video games is such a weird market, especially when it comes to like the foreign market, especially when it's out of our ecosystem. Like when it comes to like when we discuss games from like Japan and like how it was a lot of trends chasing a lot for a lot of the games that they made, and then it's like how a lot of markets, like for example like South America and like Mexico and stuff like that, kind of like got the other end of a stick when it comes to a lot of stuff. It's really sad that we didn't get that, but it's interesting to see that at one point or another there were talks, and even though it fell through, I do appreciate that the fact that it's like that there was some effort put in, and like I said before, I think one last thought. And I've said this before, I think on another podcast, another episode, and I said that the SNES and PlayStation era of video games, especially when it came to like anime games, was like that's like the golden era. That's like the era of like all like the best, like some of the best stuff that came out from that some of the best anime based video games came from that era. And sadly, Saint Seiya came out too early for that era to be part of that era. So it's interesting to see that there was efforts to at least there was at least be some effort to bring that into that golden era of of anime video games, in my opinion. So it's interesting to see it in that light as well. Where it's like, if Saint Seiya, if they would have said yes, there would be a whole generation of Saint Seiya fans that grew up seeing that their first exposure to the game would have been someone finding the ROM on some weird out the wall website. Alrighty then, guys.
Yeah, most likely.
Because that's how I remember a lot of people were like, oh, I used to play a lot. I used to remember Dragon Ball, or I used to remember Yu Yu Hakusho. I used to play all the video games because I got it from some weird website, and that's how I became a fan. It's like, it's interesting. Like, if that would have it's interesting to see like what if that generation would have seen a Saint Seiya game and how they would have reacted to that. So, yeah. Any other thoughts?
Nothing more to add for the moment, but it is wonderful. But I do agree with what you said, that even if it didn't come to nothing, at the very least, I can appreciate and be thankful that the effort was there and the offer was there.
Alrighty then. Why don't we get onto our episode discussion, episode 86 through 89, not episodes 87 to 91. I'm sorry, I was either half asleep, half paying attention, or whatever. But like, I'm sorry, but like, it's 86 to 89. So why don't we get started with episode 86? Pegasus.
Alrighty. Okay, so we begin episode 86, right where we left on episode 85, which made the big revelation about the past of Mime, and him basically fooling himself into thinking that his father was a bad person, but in reality it was more of a matter of circumstance and tragedy, and this makes him enter into conflict about his personal motivations, something that Iki is kind of confronting him about. Then, as the fight starts picking up, like, Iki's kind of poking at Mime on this information, but Mime strikes back and is ready to finally give the final blow to Iki, regardless of this information. But Iki is able to escape during this time. Shun recovers himself a little bit and he's about to help Iki, but Iki, just as he did with Shaka, insists that he's gonna take on Mime alone and that he can do it by himself. Shun obliges, and then the fight continues. Iki is able to escape from the clutches of death, and then he starts attacking Mime, and they finally are more or less on equal ground. Then Mime, having finally accepted the tragedy of his situation and kind of being, well, I am implying, but at the very least coming into realization that just following the God Warrior's orders is not something worthwhile, he decides to confront Iki one last time, just for a matter of being able to put himself as a person, as an individual, and his own ability against Iki, with no longer with any self-doubt in his mind. In this encounter, Iki turns out victorious and Mime passes away, but he does so in peace compared to some of the other God Warriors. Iki is then left standing. Well, is then left defeated, but unfortunately, he passes out due to this incident. So Shun is instructed by Iki to carry on, and then we finish this episode with the news that Mime has died, and that now Alberich is going to enter the scene, Alberich of Megris, and then the episode ends.
Your initial thoughts, Jackie?
I feel like random things that really jumped at me since. You know what? I was thinking with the whole thing that Saori is trying to keep the polar caps from melting. They were kind of foreshadowing the problem we're gonna have with global warming now, I suppose. I don't know why that was the first thing that popped in my head when she had that telepathic talk with Iki. But speaking of Iki, I guess he kind of parallels Shun that he can perform stronger attacks when he loses his cloth. I don't know if this is a thing with all of them, or at least so far with Shun, now Iki, and I guess Shiryu.
It's like they get it's like they get like a times 10 buff to like whatever their attacks are doing for whatever they're doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just it was shocked that man. I never thought about it, but yeah, Iki was definitely his most powerful without the cloth because I guess he's the phoenix and he can be reborn and all that. And then Shun does that. Other than that, I mean, I'm glad that Shun actually ultimately did try to help Iki because seemed to me for most of the episode they were just putting him in this like he's just being useless, going big brother, big brother, big brother. That he actually did something, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see. It's like he did like even though he didn't really do much because like he said no, this is a fight between him and me. Like at least he wasn't like screaming and he wasn't like crying like how Toy would like him to be out most of the time. But
Yeah, so yeah, then I guess they somewhat justify that. Like he wasn't just crying, like not doing anything, or at least Iki told him, okay, no, I'm gonna do this fight on my own. So they I guess that way kind of no one can say really, oh, Shun was absolutely useless in the fight. Iki said, no, this is my fight, I'm gonna finish it off. So
any thoughts so far on Bekas?
I suppose that leading from where Jackie was going with this, it does fall very much into character with Iki. Like he's always been very much of a loner. Like he's a lone wolf. He doesn't like to. He cares about his companions. He cares about Shun very much, very deeply. But even in spite of that, he prefers to act by himself. He does not like to act in group. That's something that's very much been a part of his character since the very beginning. So the fact that and he likes to do things by himself and to end things as he sees fit. So it's very much in character for him to like tell Shun to basically just uh, not interfere, not intervene in, and that just let him do his thing. So it perfectly makes sense with Iki's character what's going on. As for Mime, I think that it's a bit of I'm not sure. I have mixed feelings about this because even though I've always liked the fact that he kind of redeems himself at the end, that he kind of like sees the light and just wanted to prove himself, and that's what leads him to basically die. It always kind of you cannot help but shake that feeling of he died in vain, of like if you're finally coming around to this, why are you basically just sacrificing yourself needlessly, right? But at the same time, I also get that it's part of like the need of the plot to advance, the need to resolve the conflict, and sometimes like it's not out of the question either for a character to basically be suicidal just for the sake of proving themselves. Especially because we can see like the degree of how much Mime was affected by basically like he always kind of felt inferior. It's inferred, not so much as stated, but you kind of can tell by his flashbacks that he kind of felt inferior, especially with the flashback in this episode where he says, "Oh, I could never become a god warrior," and his father, I always forget his name. That his father says, "No, I think you can." Or are you sure about that? Like planting that seed of doubt in him. Like he had the potential, but he never was able to pass that insecurities of himself, and it's a shame that that ended up becoming his demise in a weird way. So it's kind of tragic that that ends up happening for him. As for the fight itself, I think that it started off well, but it kind of like became too slow paced by the middle. So I think the episode dragged on a little bit. Truth be told, I think that maybe they could have inserted this into the previous episode and just have that be the end of it. But it's not the worst. It's not the worst execution either. At least I didn't feel it as bad as it was with Fenrir. So it's a fine episode. Like not the best, but it's fine. That's how I
I
felt about it.
I actually enjoyed this because I did enjoy the fact that at the last moment he kind of like Mime kind of manned up and tried to confront everything like head on. I did like that aspect because it does show it's like that regardless of his stance, he does want to have a fair fight. He does want to prove himself to be the fighter that his father said he would be. And I felt I it was really I felt and I felt that was a really interesting part of that fight because it was like he for like we were hammered so much that that he felt inferior, and he finally got the chance to prove that he wasn't. And even though he failed at it, it does show that at the end he did put in the more effort into it and trying to do something else as opposed to it as out of spite. he saw he saw the true potential that was within him, and he did his best, but unfortunately the fight was already at its end already, and someone said, "No, time's up. You're dying right here." So
Yeah, I get what you mean with that.
I will say it's like I will say it's like it's kind of stupid the fact that he's just like, look, just go on without me. I'm gonna take a nap right here. That's the initial thought. When after the fight, he's like, okay, look, check the thing and just leave. I'm gonna lay down here for a little bit.
Well, Sherry's doing the same, so.
Well, no, he has an excuse. He has an excuse. We find out later that excuse. So at least on his end, at least in Shiryu's case, it's justified. Here, it's just like, oh yeah, I had a fight. I'm gonna just lay down here. Just go, please. I'll meet you up later.
I need 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes. Just leave me alone for a minute. I'll catch up.
Yeah, it's just like it's nice and cool here. It's nice and cool here in Asgard.
This episode too, or I forget the next episode. Seiya was actually kind of saying that he needs some 5 minutes or something like that.
I think it's the next episode because we never ever see Seiya throughout the
Okay, it might be the next one, but he was that.
Yeah, but for the most part, like I said, other than me making that dumb quip, I thought this was a solid episode overall because it did show the growth of Mime, and it did give us and I felt like out of all the God Warriors up until this point, there was something stupid that kind of held them back, and I felt like this one, as time went on, it felt a little bit more real. And at the end, that ending revelation that their tragic backstory kind of tried to be beyond. They tried to go beyond it, and it would have been interesting to see if what would have happened if he lived, or if he survived, or if the fight would have dragged down even more, because you can tell he wanted to prove himself. And it would have been interesting to see what would have been if they would have continued on. Jack, do you have any other thoughts?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Good to go.
Any other thoughts, Benkas?
Yeah, I actually have a couple. I did forget to add that not only did he kind of redeem himself, Mime, but the fact that when Iki lost his cloth, the fact that Mime took off his god robe to be on equal ground with Iki, I think that speaks volumes of his character. And as you said, I felt that the episode dragged a little bit, but I still think that it's a fun episode. And in general, the Mime fight, I think in particular, was very well done. I think it has been, up until this point, probably the best fight that we've had, if only because Mime's character also, I think, is developed the best here. Because even though we get to see snippets of the past of every single God Warrior up until now, Mime somehow feels better as a character. To my eyes, he feels better as a character than the previous God Warriors we've had so far. So I can appreciate Mime's story more and having its conclusion here than I think I did with some of the other God Warriors. Even though I think
built up his character, you're right.
I did like oh god, a Hagen's fight a bit more, but only maybe for all the wrong reasons. But it's still, I think Mime's character in development here was much better than with the other God Warriors so far. So I did enjoy that aspect, one thing. And just one other aspect that kind of left me very confused at the end of this episode, that kind of shows the budget limitations. Did anybody else find it so weird that despite the fact that Iki's left unconscious at the middle of his episode, the final scene is that very cool wallpaper, but of him just Phoenix out and just standing there? And I was like, what the fuck? Why?
They blew all of it just to make that really cool panorama, that cool panoramic view. They're like, yo, we got yo. I heard from Dave.
Phoenix leaves or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's like. I'm very sure I know what's gonna happen. The art director was like, John Toy just gave us some extra cash. We can go crazy on this episode, and they just went crazy and tried to do this huge panorama thing. So that's how they kind of did this whole thing of that. But no, I didn't notice it. I was more focused on the fight itself. Like I said, I was more now that I'm gonna look at it again, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. But yeah,
Like, it's the very last scene, and it
Yeah,
felt
and they
so out
just
of place
kinda
because like it makes absolutely no sense. Like, okay, we end up like it could have just ended with Iki like being unconscious on the ground, but then we get this super cool image of him like just like standing there. I'm like, why? Like, it looks fucking amazing. It's a fantastic wallpaper, but why?
It's like you want us to feel, where oh my gosh, is Icky gonna live or stay dead? But it's like, oh, okay. So they give us a wallpaper and say like, hey, he's alive.
yeah,
Guess that's what it means.
also, like I said, I guess that's where my mentality of like, oh yeah, he's just falling asleep because it didn't look like he died. And I guess because of that, I'm like, oh yeah, he's just laying down because he's lazy.
It's just I guess the actual script makes it sound like he's actually dead, like he's dying, or he thought he was gonna die. So, but I guess but even though I think most of us could have guessed that wasn't gonna be the case because he's Iki, for some reason they had to reassure us with that wallpaper image.
Mm-hmm.
But it still fell out of place.
All right. Is there any other thoughts before we head on to our next episode, episode 87?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I think we can move on to the next one.
All right, let's go on to episode 87.
All right. Okay, so episode 87. After the fight with Mibe ends, all the Bronze Saints continue on their quest to try to collect the sapphires of Odin. But we are now, even though we got to see a glimpse of Alberic's personality on the last episode when he states that he's going to be the one to take out the Bronze Saints, here we get to see a little bit more of the dynamic that he has with the other God Warriors, because both Sid and Siegfried are kind of impatient. I forgot to mention in the previous one, because Siegfried stated that he was just gonna go and fight all the Bronzes just to put an end to this because they've lost enough people already. Then Alberic intervenes and says that he's gonna be the one to do it. But here we get to see just how much of a cocky, arrogant person he is. Apparently, he believes himself to be more intelligent than the others. Then we get a glimpse of Seiya finally recovering from his drunken state. Finally, that hangover is starting to pass, and he starts to make his way as are the others. Well, with the exception of Shiryu, who was still snorting cocaine. I mean, who was still unconscious on the snow, and then and, and then finally waking up and finally retaking his place. And then we get to see Alberic's personality, and we get to get a little bit more about him before he even gets to fight, seeing how basically he was despised by Hilda previously to her being possessed by the Nibelungian ring, and that she kind of saw like the evilness or the wickedness in him and not using his intellect for good, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like his arrogance and his obsession with power shine through. Then he senses that there's an intruder nearing the Valhalla palace, and he starts to chase after them. The intruder revealed to be Marin, who has made her way to Asgard. And then the fight ensues between Marin and Alberic, in which we cannot get to see that in terms of power, Alberic is not as powerful as his other companions so far, but he is more wicked when it comes to his abilities, as he is willing to fight dirty in order to gain the upper hand. Then using an attack called the Amethyst Shield to basically lock Marin into a type of crystal state, like in which she's conscious but cannot move and cannot act, and basically her life is being drained away by this amethyst. Seiya then makes it onto the scene after he senses the danger in which Marin is in, and then he starts to fight Alberic. At the beginning, he starts to gain the upper hand on him, but again, Alberic somewhat playing dirty and by trying to trick Seiya into believing that if he kills Alberic, then Marin's life will end as well. The episode ends with Seiya kind of contemplating on how to proceed and what to do next, and that's where this episode ends.
Okay, Jackie, your initial thoughts.
I hate this guy.
We all do.
I really hate this. This is one of the I'm always rooting for the good guys, the bad guys. I'm like, yeah, okay, but this is one of the few characters I will say I actually hated, and it was to me even rare the fact that even the other God Warriors hate him. Like
Yeah, it's one of
then they want him. They're like, if the Saints actually kill him, they're like, oh, great, they're actually doing us a favor.
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of those weird cases of like we don't actually like this guy either. So
yeah, yeah. It's everyone's like, let him do, let him handle this, let him handle this. He's like, if he dies, it's actually gonna be a plus for us. But
yeah, you don't see that very often, so
no,
that's the first thing that jumps out to me.
Because any initial thoughts?
yeah, actually, I have a little bit of trivia that I'd like to share if before I say my thoughts regarding
Go for
him.
it.
It's not much. It's not much. Alberic is one of those characters that did not have too much of a change when it comes to his background to what his final character ended up being in the final product. But I think that it's interesting the way that he was described originally because well, one thing that can be, I think that you can kind of see it, but you don't really pay too much attention to it. Is particularly the way the episodes are handled. But he is like the smallest of all the God Warriors in size. He's he's the smallest of all of them, and also he is described a conspiracy man, keen as a fox, and has already thought Asgard. And the reason why he follows Hilda is because he originally thinks that Asgard was 100% going to win, and he's a realist. As for his heart, he's like Death Mask, and his excess in confidence is going to be proven fatal for him. That's the character description that he was given by Takao Koyama in his original conception, and in the end, you basically see that in the final product. But what I find somewhat funny is that he is like Dead Mask, pretty much. Like he's like the Death Mask of the God Warriors. Just how much you can see that his interests are above everything and everybody else. But I'm sorry, I actually like Alberic. He's my favorite God Warrior. I actually like him. He's an SOB. I'm not gonna deny that. He really is. But there's something about him that I've always liked, that I've always enjoyed. I don't know how to describe it. I think maybe he's very charismatic, but I do find like he's a bastard. But
probably that's why you like him, because he's a bastard. He has no problem with it.
But I don't know. Like I don't really like those types of characters usually. For example, you can get me ranting the entire day of how much I hate Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh! And okay, it's not the same type of character, but he's somewhat similar in the sense of like he's a cocky, arrogant bastard. And Alberic by all those means he's the same, but there's something about him that makes him likable to me. I cannot put it into words.
You know, it's that cult of personality he's trying to establish. You know, he presents himself as like this arrogant person. But you know, when you're that arrogant and you're that and when you're that arrogant, you kind of have to have this air of like presentability, of like being bigger and being like more of a you know, being a bigger, being just this like just being like above all of it. So I'm pretty sure like I'm not gonna say like, oh my god, like, you know, they thought a lot of this stuff like beforehand. But I'm pretty sure a lot of this was I'm pretty sure a lot of this stuff got telegraphed of like him. They kind of took a lot of those cues that you mentioned of like his characteristics, and they kind of applied it to the character because that's what you do. But I figured it's like, you know, when it comes to this kind of a character of like this arrogant person that we're gonna learn in the next episode, it's kind of like a wants to do some nefarious things. You kind of have to have this magnetic you have to have like this magnetic like personality that to make you interested in it. So I'm pretty sure. So I do like the fact that like they kind of play into that with his character. I just like, you know. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy Alvidic as a villain. But I have some thoughts, but I'm gonna leave those thoughts as we go on, because I think that like I brought this point up like in private before we started, but it does feel kind of like convoluted, and we actually get to see a little bit of like, not convoluted, but it feels like they're pulling stuff out of their butts when it comes to Alvidic. Because like
that's
like,
the thing, because go on, sorry.
I was gonna say because like he does because like during the fight with Marin, he does this weird acid thing, and then he has the Amethyst Fist, and then later on he's gonna do some more things, and I'm like, why are they giving him all this stuff? You know, it doesn't make sense. And it's I mentioned the Bangkok. Were they trying to what was there trying? Was it some sort of mix-up? Were they trying to at one point make him into like this, like the final boss of this arc? But they kind of fumbled their way through it because
Yeah.
as we go on with this description of these episodes, they seem to give him more and more stuff to do and more stuff. But
That
Jackie,
you can't beat him. Yeah.
yeah. But Jackie, you have any thought? You look like you want to say something. Sorry.
Thing that bothers me. No, you're fine. That okay, so they bring in Mary, which kind of seems out of place, but it's kind of like the same thing we've seen even during 12 It's like you're trying to somewhat say, yeah, we're including in, the female saints too, but then it's like she gets defeated pretty fast, and it's like, why are you bringing her in only to like pretty much capture? It's just, it feels like they could have given her a better role or something. I mean, okay, I think I have to watch the rest of the episodes. Like, I think she's kind of gathered some information, but still, I kind of feel like they would have been better if they just didn't put her in at all. They just kind of, because she's like, they just put it in as a filler. Like, this is already a filler arc. They're doing a lot of filler things. And you are married.
No,
and it doesn't really help her character. Really, like you're not putting her in the good light. She's kind of like she's the first one to get captured.
Yeah, and she's supposed to be the master of one of the saints, and it's like that putting her in that position is absolutely inexcusable. But any thoughts on that, Benkos?
I actually do, because here's the thing. I agree with the fact that Marin is not presented in a good light here, but for me, it does make sense her presence being here. Like, okay, here's the thing. Obviously, the reason why she's put up here, like in the sense of the real reason why she's in this episode is because she needs to be like the liaison, apparently the emotional liaison, to be able to bring Seiya to fight Alberic directly. Which I think that they didn't necessarily need to go that way when I'm trying to think of it as a bigger picture. However, I will say that okay, what's done is done, but I do think that it makes sense for Marin to be here for the following reason. It does, to the contrary, it makes no sense that the rest of the saints, of Athena's saints, even though she's in peril, even though she's in danger, none of them would actually appear or start acting towards the goal of helping her. So the fact that the Silver Saints, in this case Marin, and well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Okay, Marin being here as part of Athena's army and trying to do something about it makes sense for me. The thing is that, as you mentioned previously, and that's something I didn't consider before. Unfortunately, Alberic does suffer from, like, he gets a lot of shit out of nowhere, and I think that's unfortunate because on the one hand, it completely makes sense for his character because, as I mentioned previously, you can clearly see that in terms of raw power, he's probably the weakest of the God Warriors, or at the very least, the ones we've seen until now. And like compared to his other teammates who pretty much had no problem pummeling the Saints in the beginning, you can see that he's struggling to defeat even a Silver Saint. Even though he gains the upper hand later, which would make sense because him being a God Warrior and them supposedly being threats to even the Gold Saints makes sense for Marin to lose. It's just, and also I don't really feel too bad for Marin in the sense that I think that if it had been a fair fight, she probably could have won. But as I mentioned earlier, Alberic played dirty. Okay, they pulled the acid thing out of their ass. That's unquestionable. But okay, he has this ability, which clearly gives him an advantage in battle, which is not an advantage in terms of power, and it's a very cowardly advantage, not the way that most warriors in the Saint Seiya universe would fight. But that's also something that I think was smart on part of the writers, especially when it comes to the character of Alberic. He's very unique in the Saint Seiya universe because I think he perfectly encapsulates you don't have to be more powerful than your opponent in order to defeat them. You just need to be either smarter than them or to just gain a momentary advantage when it comes to your power compared to them, which is what the protagonists mostly do most of the time. So him using these cowardly tactics to gain an advantage upon his enemies, I think was a very smart way to write a villain for this arc. That's the reason why I like him very, very much, because he as a character he's despicable, but he's a very good villain in that sense.
Yeah, and like Here's the thing. I'm more inclined. I'm more inclined to feel the same way with Jackie because it does feel like it's character suicide for the most part with Marion because it's like she's a Silver Saint. She should be a little bit more powerful, and like all throughout the series, like she's kind of treated like as a punching bag for the most part. Like we do know for a fact she is more powerful, but the thing is like this fight should have this fight should have been a little bit more I want to say one sided. But if you do feel like there should have been times where Marin should have had the advantage. I'm not disagreeing with the end result for her to be encapsulated to get Seiya out. I am complaining. It's like there should have been more to the fight to give her a little bit more like to make her look better to make her look better. That's something I will agree. That's something I will say because as in my mind, I saw I just back in my brain we were going back to when we were discussing the 12 houses and how poorly they kind of treated her because of plot reasons. And I felt like this was an extension of that. And in my brain, I was playing Monday Morning Quarterback, and if you don't know what that is, it's just theorizing what you would do. And in my brain, it's like I would have done the inverse. I would have made Seiya go in first, him be captured, and then have him and then have Marin be the one that's actually there, as time goes on, be the one that's kind of guiding everybody else. I would have done that with the character to make her to keep her strong, and to to not really give her a handicap like that. I think that's the biggest flaw. It's like the writers intentionally give her this. The writers give her like this a quote unquote handicap she suddenly just doesn't know how to fight properly again, and that's I think that's like the biggest sin of this episode in my opinion. Any other thoughts on Jackie?
Nope. Next episode.
Jackass, any other thoughts?
Based on what you just said, I actually agree with you. For example, I don't mind the what happened here, but I think that you're right that unfortunately this adds to Marin being put in a bad light, which is something that unfortunately Toei does to several characters throughout the series, and particularly with her filler arcs. And Marin in this case, even though she's not put in as bad of a light as it was in the Sanctuary arc. It does contribute to that, and I didn't really think about it until you mentioned it in that light. I agree with that, and I think the execution could have been better. Maybe maybe having the exact same result, but with Marin putting more of a fight, or maybe dominating Alberic a little bit, and then him being cowardly, and then getting the upper hand of it in a more drastic manner. But yeah, it's unfortunate that Marin didn't had to suffer a little bit of that abuse, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen again with I don't want to do spoilers, but I think that's also why I was thinking in retrospect, yeah, this is just the beginning of them doing that, and I'm like, yeah. So Carrie, when we get to that next episode, I'll definitely point it out why this is just bugging me so much.
But why don't we go on to episode 88?
Yeah.
Okay. Very well. Let's move on to episode 88. Okay, on episode 88, we pick right after we left off with that dilemma with Seiya of how he should act or what he should do because he's unsure if what Alberic's saying is right. If he kills him, will Marin perish in the process? He kind of struggles with that. He reminisces about his training with Marin and all the lessons and teachings she gave him, but in the end decides to do as he is, which is being a saint of Athena. And in order for the greater good to happen, he must put those feelings beside him, and he starts to fight Alberic in a more serious light. However, unfortunately for Seiya, Alberic dwells a new weapon, which is a sword, a flaming sword that is part of his cloth, and starts to attack Seiya, which in the end ends up getting the upper hand on him for him to be able to fall victim to Alberic's amethyst shield, and Seiya becoming the second victim of Alberic in this sense. Alberic being confident of what is going on, the others sense what's happening, and then we get to see that apparently Alberic was present on the day that Hilda was giving the Nibelungen ring, and that he realized.
Oh yeah, you got it right.
And he knows for a fact that Hilda is acting out of character, but because of his own ambition, which is him basically becoming the ruler of Asgard. Do you remember this? Did this happen in the episode before where he has the imaginary scene where
No,
he
it happened in this
uses
episode.
Oh, okay. Because he while he's contemplating his plans and his ambitions. Oh yeah, actually that happens right afterwards. After he reminiscence the scene of him being present at Hilda's possession, then he reveals in inner monologue that his plan is to acquire the 7 Odin sapphires to gain the Odin sword and be able to kill Hilda and become the ruler of Asgard. So basically, for his own agenda. After this, Hyoga is the third warrior to find Alberich and the other 2 defeated saints, and begins a fight with Alberich that begins pretty on the advantage of Hyoga, but unfortunately Alberich's sword is enough for him to kind of fend off Hyoga, and the episode ends with him about to strike Hyoga with his flaming sword, and then the episode ends with that cliffhanger.
Before I send it out to Jackie, I'm gonna say this right now. I want to get to that. I want to get to that away now. If Alvidic just decides to run for presidency right now with his current I want to kill Hilda platform, he will win the presidency. Everyone will be like, 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years. Everyone. That's why it's like when they cut to the scene with everybody just everyone bowing, like, yeah, no, this is totally realistic. This is totally what would totally happen if this would totally happen in real life. Like they're not mincing words. They will allow they'll allow it and they'll be like, no, let's keep him as the envoy of Odin from now on. I may not agree. Like, yeah, Hilda was a better person, but I do like his killing Hilda policy though. But yeah, Jackie, please go on.
They really haven't any notes on this one because well, at least Seiya's putting up a good fight, but I guess this is what I have to agree with, because what he was saying earlier, that yeah, Marion was really there to be, I guess, that emotional motivation for Seiya to really start kicking Alberic's butt. But this is just a chain reaction that starts to get ridiculous. Marion and it's
yes.
Seiya, and then I'm like.
And then we're not even done yet. That's the crazy part, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate him, but I guess if anything made worthwhile watching this fight is because they're going down like dominoes. You gotta give it to him. He's actually taking them down.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why it's like, that's why it led me to believe that's like, were they planning something bigger? Because like, if they're pulling out that much stuff out of their asses to like giving him the sword, giving him the ability to like freeze people in an amethyst, in an amethyst crystal, like, and then later on we figure out something else. It's like, were they trying to position him as like again? It looks like they were trying to position him to be like this like final boss like type person, but at the same time, like, no. And again, and because like I guess because it's like we're seeing everybody struggle even up to Marin fighting. That's where that mentality kind of came from. But do you have any other thoughts?
I never really yet realized that he was the shortest of all of them. But I guess, well, he didn't get in height. He makes some with his intelligence. I mean, he is. Oh, I can't think of the word to describe, but I guess he's like a mad genius. I mean, he's an excellent strategist. I mean, even if it's dirty, he has no he's an honest bastard, but he is getting the job done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He really does put the other God Warriors in a really bad light because he is like he did say, "Hey, I'm gonna do what the others didn't," and so far he's getting the job done.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Pegasus?
Yeah, I have actually several when it comes to Alberic, but I'd like to say something that has to do with both trivia as well as an unfortunate piece of trivia that comes to that. As you might know, one of the reasons why the Saint Seiya anime did not continue past the Poseidon arc and why it took them so long to adapt Hades was for two main reasons. One, the anime had caught up to the manga, but the reason why they did not opt to try and do more filler to allow the manga to breathe and give them that time to try to adapt that was because basically at that time the ratings for the anime had dropped quite significantly, and Bandai did not see fit to continue to sponsor the series in that regard, because also the sales of the figures, starting with the ones for the Asgard arc, as well as the next one, unfortunately were very low in Japan. So that unfortunately contributed to the cancellation of the Saint Seiya anime in the 90s.
Uh-oh.
I mentioned this because unfortunately the Asgard arc is the beginning of that decline in viewership, and while it does not contain the only episodes to have low ratings for the series, it has, let me count, 5 of the top 8 episodes with the lowest ratings
Oh
of the
my
entire series.
dear Christ!
And actually, this episode 88, is the 8th episode with the lowest ratings in the entire show.
Ooh, daddy.
So yeah, even though I don't think that this is necessarily because of Outbreak, I think this is the first sign where you can actually concretely see with an objective spoon the fact that this arc started to hurt the series in ways that people like to pretend that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I want to say I want to say that it was just like like it was gathered. It was like all this was gathering. Like this was all something because it was. I'm pretty sure a lot of these people had the same thoughts that we had when we were watching the initial things, like the initial episodes. Because like I'm enjoying this fight so far, but I'm very sure too. Like a lot of the like if what you're saying is true, a lot of the same a lot of the viewers are complaining about the same things that we are, and that's starting to damage that's where the damage is starting to that's where the damage is starting to happen. But
yeah, and also, sorry, I would like to add this. I'm not going to spoil exactly why, but unfortunately, this has a very, very negative effect on the anime specifically, because many of these tropes, because they're taking the usual Saint Seiya tropes, that is part of the series that always have been and continue to be even to this day. But the thing is that the way that Kurumada usually writes is that he always manages to put something in that spins it somewhat and makes it interesting. Even if he's repeating the same methodology, he always finds a different way to execute it. But here, they're putting them in such a bad light that unfortunately it did not help when the next arc begins. So the seeds for people losing interest in the series start to pop out here specifically.
interesting. Jackie, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'd just be going in circles at that point. But you made a good point. I mean, unfortunately, that I feel like this is definitely the series I had the most complaint about. I mean, the arts, and first thinking maybe it's just me, but then if you're telling us that the ratings started going down and all that, then they were doing something wrong. Like acid can be fun, but there's something that's being done right when there's so much to gripe about.
Yeah, and like I said, like if if they're complaining about the same things we're complaining about, especially with the story and stuff like that, and how things are going, I'm very sure it's like it's the same. They're echoing the same things that we have a problem with, and that's I think what caused a lot of problems. And the worst part is like this happened early on in this arc. This happened very early on, so it's like just like you start off strong and then you kind of like meander for like 8 episodes, and finally now you're finally kind of like doing something interesting, but sorry, too little, too late at this point.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on Pegasus?
Oh yeah, well that was the trivia that kind of I wanted to mention that because here's the thing. I don't want to throw I don't want people to think that I'm just throwing as pardon the expression shit at the arc itself. But it's one of those. Unfortunately, this arc has like the bad reputation of being one of those arcs that people tend to defend to the blood and even say that this arc is better than some of the other parts of the series. That's the kind of thing that I have a problem with. That unfortunately makes me kind of go on the defensive of the series in itself when it comes to that, especially because you can show like the tangible evidence of the contrary. But okay, regardless of whatever I may think or not, the thing is, like, it doesn't matter if I like or dislike or whatever. Which I'll say my final thoughts on the arc when we finish it. But so far, I do like it. It's just that I think it's very flawed, and you can see that, and the people could see that even back in the day. And it's very unfortunate because that is something that will have consequences for this. That something that the series will not be able to shake off, especially the classic series. Like you can see that all the way until the end, unfortunately. As for the episode itself, I think I really like it, if only because I think at the very least, probably maybe it does have a lot of BS. The fact that Alberic just pulls a sword out of his bum, it's kind of okay. It's not unheard of for enemies to sometimes do things that the heroes don't anticipate and that they have to adapt to the situation. I kind of get where they were going with Alberic, but this is the second time where they had to give him something that doesn't really get an explanation outside of ahaha, my god, my god Rove always had this thing from the beginning. And now I'm using it. It kind of feels like they had to pull something that feels too dramatically different just to give Alberic an advantage over Seiya, because Seiya could have easily defeated him, but they had to give him something that gave him the advantage, and it feels kind of cheap. I like the fact that they did something different, and it is interesting to watch, but it feels cheap in execution. Then Kyoga comes in, and I think that it's returning to the point where we were talking about with the fight with Hagen, that it made a little bit of no sense that he had so much difficulty fighting fire, considering he can get temperatures that could probably freeze any type of fire. So that's somewhat infuriating.
Well, yeah, I had that. That's my note for the next episode.
Yeah, but you can already see some of that BS here, right? Like, oh, the sword prevented me from being okay. I can see his regular attacks not being countered by the sword, but the next episode we'll get into that aspect. But you can start to see that BS of him being overly powerful when needed, or his sword being overly powerful just to be able to fend these two.
She's not even an Ice Saint, really. That's bad. It starts looking to me.
Yeah. What I'll say that is positive about this, because I actually, despite my complaints, I do like this episode. I do find it entertaining and interesting, is that at least it has you on the edge, because Alberic has now defeated two Saints. Like, so far, he's the villain that's defeated the most out of all of them so far. He's proving to be the most competent one, even if he's a bastard. So that is what's very interesting about Alberic as a character, even if the means are somewhat questionable in execution and in series as well.
One last thing I want to note. I'm glad that the writers, and I'm glad that Hyoga finally remembered he can freeze people. He can do the whole thing, the thing he defeated Dockercheese with, where he can freeze people's legs.
Oh yeah, actually, I actually did want to. I did put that on my notes, but I forgot to mention it. It's good to see them being consistent with their own writing, because that's actually a technique invented for the anime. So I'm glad that they find ways to use it for situations where it makes sense in the series.
Yeah, but it's like you could have done this much earlier with you could have done this much earlier, but no, you just opted to just suddenly bust it out right here. Anyways, any final thoughts, Jackie?
Carry on.
All right. Any final thoughts on Benkos?
No, just that Alberic is badass. It's just a shame that his methods are very questionable.
I thought it was getting even worse. So let's go on to episode 89, our final episode of this block.
All right, episode 89, beginning exactly where we left off, with Alberic about to strike Hyoga with the flaming sword. Hyoga is barely able to dodge the attack, but is still having difficulty facing against Alberic. Then he decides to put an end to this fight by using his most powerful attack, the Aurora Execution, but unfortunately Alberic is also able to escape his clutches with the power of his sword. Then, unfortunately, Hyoga, being weakened by the previous fight, as well as using his energy with the attack, falls victim to the Amethyst Shield. And also to Alberic's techniques when using. No, sorry. Before he uses the Amethyst Shield, he runs away into the woods with Hyoga in pursuit, and then he unveils a new power in which he's able to control nature. And apparently there are like malignant spirits in that wood where they are fighting. And
it's pretty much Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, and basically Hyoga gets a recreation of that scene without the SA scene, and then by being weakened by that, he then suffers he's then is about to receive Alberic's attack, and him not able to escape it. But Shiryu just arrives in the nick of time after receiving some encouragement from the old master, and then he is barely able to
Oh
save
my
Hyoga's
God.
butt. And then and then Shiryu decides to take on Alberic, where it is revealed by a telepathic conversation with Doko that apparently he fought when he was young, a predecessor or an ancestor. Ancestor is the correct word of Alberic, and we get to see Doko in his young form in the anime. Doko relays this information to Shiryu, who then uses this knowledge to his. He's about to use this knowledge, and then you see the episode ends with a cliffhanger of Shiryu about to face off against Alberic, now with all his abilities unveiled. We hope.
Hopefully, nothing else that we need to know.
Oh God, Jackie, your thoughts.
Hyoga, Kami did not die for you to make such dumbass mistakes, and you're making the execution look like a poor joke. Yeah. Seriously. I mean, this is what I just get with this series, because in 12 Temples, a execution is like the ultimate attack of, the Ice Age, especially Camu. Hyoga is like again and again, just like, makes it look like such a basic attack. I know Alberic is OP and all, but I think I would have rather Hyoga use any other attack than the Aurora execution. That would have made it more believable that his power is it's nowhere near absolute zero. Because that's what gets me. We had this whole thing established about absolute zero. But yeah, this is just like I really like this episode for all the wrong reasons. As a kid, it really bothered me, but it's like it's just laughable how like bad it's going for like going down the drain. But at least he got saved by Shiryu. But more importantly, I really the thing I'm wondering now, we get to see young Doko, which obviously I'm gonna imagine that at this time, I don't know if Kurumada had the concept for what Doko looked like, because obviously here we don't know, how Doko came to be, about his race and form, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gonna do the comparison, like, to what we know Doko looks like. He doesn't really look like what like seems like this. He sort of looks like what Kurumada actually made him to look like, but then again, not really. So I don't know. What are y'all thoughts on that?
Pegasus, you go first. Pretty sure you have the answer.
Specifically, when it comes to the Doko thing, that actually, this is something that the writers once again decided to pull out of. Okay, again, to the credit of the writers, there was no way in hell that they could have foreseen the events that will transpire later in the series for his younger form to be revealed. So
not at all. Like could have long plot had that, like, because there are sometimes
Kurumada is very unpredictable. Yeah, Kurumada is extremely unpredictable. Like, people like to pretend that he's extremely predictable, but he's not. Like, he tends to repeat certain formulas, but he always does something to the execution that just completely throws the ball on the left field, or whatever the expression is.
Okay, so he had not designed him at all.
Yeah, he didn't have the design for Doko in mind. This is something that the animators decided to invent and to use for themselves. Again, I am giving them credit because there was no way in hell that they could have foreseen Doko's younger form being revealed later. But the interesting aspect of it, and this is part of the trivia, because they decided to use his younger form, they actually used that face design for the original Saint Claude series toy, like the original toy with that original line of vintage toys that launched for Saint Seiya. That is the face that they use for Doko. So even though it was an anime invention, they gave it a use for that as well for their merchandise, and it was interesting. It was kind of mind blowing. Like, oh, so this is what he looked like back in the day. Interesting, and that's what we thought that he looked like for many years.
And that's what we thought you actually turned into if you lived that long.
Yeah. If you're able to live that much, then hey, you being a very old prune, it's not out of the question.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember hearing about that. Where it's like because I think for when they released the toys first, they didn't give him a full shot of his face. It was actually covered. It was actually kind of covered up. And then think when they reissued some of the figures, and then when they reissued the figures after Asgard during the Asgard series, they switched the box art to have to have that artwork, to have that particular artwork. And I always look at that artwork and I'm like, there's something Jackie Chan-ish about the way he looks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's what when I remember seeing that. I remember seeing this whenever I see pictures of that anime Doko before we kind of got the one that they kind of went with. Because I think it's like that swollen nose and that kind of like that smirk he has, where it's like I can see a little of Jackie Chan in that. But
yeah, now I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, but I see it now.
Yeah, but okay. So first and foremost, I want my thoughts is that Doko just like because like it wasn't he wasn't having a telepathic thing. He wasn't having a telepathic talking with Doko. He was reminding that he was reminded of. Shiryu was reminded of a time when we talked about this to Shiryu. So I'm like thinking to myself, how much are you sharing with Shiryu? Like, are you talking about his like, and also like, why are you remembering these random things, Shiryu? It's like, are you remember when he had breakfast like 5 weeks ago?
Very convenient selective memory, eh?
Yeah, it's just like all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I remember this time when he told me he fought a guy named Alveric, and I'm like, and he had the same technique, and like, this is extremely convenient for you to finally like have this thought, but okay, cool. But yeah, it's like again, this is what I'm talking about when I said they're pulling shit out of his ass because okay, he can transform people to ice. He can trap people into amethyst. Okay, I can respect that. He has a sword that's also flame. I can respect that. He can control the fucking nature around him. Oh my god. Okay, and it's like, and here's the thing: the sword thing I can believe because he said it's part of his cloth. Fine. This is like okay, now you're being ridiculous. This is just absurd. This is stupid. And like again, this led me to believe it's like was the point for him to be like to have all these abilities and like I hope he don't. Oh yeah, and he also randomly shoots acid. So we got 4 things, quote unquote. Like the third thing, one of them might be questionable. Maybe it was just a one-off thing he had it like in a pocket. But you have 4 things that he had. Like you have 3 things he can use. It's like, was it like again? This led me to believe like was there bigger plans for the character? But now that you said that it wasn't, it's like, man, they must have been on something when they made this character.
I agree. It had to have been.
Because it's like, dear Christ, like all the other gold, like I understand, like Hagen having having the ability of like ice and fire. Fine, I can totally see that. Or like, and then all the other god warriors, they were kind of calm, but this guy's just pulling stuff out of his butt at convenient times. And again, it feels like, I'm not, and the worst part is, it's not to the detriment of this fight. It actually makes the fight more exciting, but this is absolute bullshit. That's, I think that's the most amusing part, where it's just like, I'm having fun with this fight, but I understand.
Well, there are reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's like, and it's like again, there's a lot of it's just plot convenience up the wazoo. Again, there's a whole thing where with Doko talking about relaying the whole thing about finding Alvric's ancestor, and I'm like, oh god. Anyways, any other thoughts, Jackie?
Oh, no, it's just gonna keep. Well, we'll just see next episode what happens. I know this is like just going down this spiral, man.
I know, and if you like, and like I said, like I'm afraid this thing like because this is the first time I watched this for a very long time. I completely forgot like what happens here, and now I'm at the point where I'm like what other bullshit can they pull out of their asses this time? Pegasus, do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, actually, another piece of trivia, and this one is probably the most depressing. This episode 89, is the episode with the lowest ratings out of the entire Saint Seiya classic anime. It's number 1, baby.
So we can literally pinpoint where things went completely wrong.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure, like, we're saying all these things, and the ratings are declining. I'm very sure too. Even the audience is starting to say the same things we're saying right now. It's like, why?
Yeah.
But
remember, they only counted Japanese ratings at the time. They didn't particularly care for the ratings outside of Japan. So this is specifically talking about how the Japanese saw it. So imagine.
Well, I'm pretty sure because of how things worked out here in Mexico. It's like they I don't think they revealed, like, I'm pretty sure they reveal ratings, but I didn't think they revealed ratings about like kids TV shows and stuff like that. So as long as like, so I don't know, like as a kid, like, you know, you would think like if you were living in Mexico and you were a kid at the time, like you didn't give a shit. It was fighting. It was
cool. We didn't really think about these things. Well, we also didn't have the internet to rant about stuff like we do, because you know you have your memories. You remember, oh, this is how you felt as a kid. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool back then, but now seeing it as an adult, it's like you pick up on more stuff, and you're like, you know, you pay attention to things you didn't as a kid, and it just hits you like, oh my gosh, this guy's like ridiculously OP, like just because he can conveniently pull something to counter whatever you're trying to counter me with, and I can still counter you with this.
Yeah, and I think like, again, if the Japanese fans are thinking the same thing and ratings are starting to decline at that point, like I wouldn't be surprised, like, you know, if like, again, like I wouldn't be shocked if that's what everybody else was thinking at the time too. It was like, oh my god, like when will this just stop already? So, but is there any final thoughts on Jackie?
No.
Yeah.
Like, well, do we have to continue with this series? It just keeps going like going down and down. Like
it's just
it's like, you know, for me, for years I felt that there was something wrong with this series. I feel like, but I felt bad to feel that way. Now, actually, no, I wasn't wrong, because there must be a reason if you got rated the lowest of the lowest.
Yeah, and not just that. It's like, you know, and like you know, like nostalgia is a hell of a drug, man. Nostalgia is it really is. I'm not even kidding, because like your memories will play tricks on you, and you think things that you do, things you used to forgive back then. Like now nowadays you watch again, because like you know what it is too. It's like we don't have things to compare it with. And now that we have like things tangible that we can look at, like other animes, and even within Saint Seiya, I think we're a little bit more keen to like what these things, some of the shortcomings are. And I think this is all starting to come ahead, and because but so maybe you can correct me on this, Denkas. Can you?
I'm sorry.
Maybe you can correct me on this. How far were they in the manga at this point?
Okay. I'm not entirely sure exactly at one point they were, but they probably were either finishing or close to finishing the Poseidon arc when this aired. Let me look at the dates. Okay, so
Okay, but let's just leave it at that.
The,
Let's leave it at that. You don't stress yourself out. Let's just automatically assume that like they know what's coming
I
up
think
next.
if that's that's the whole thing. It's a filler arc, but it's like they're really like struggling to find ways to stretch it out. And it's like right now they're to the point they've run out of ideas, and it's just really getting ridiculous.
It's gonna get them even more ridiculous. I just remembered a few things, but no. But yeah, the reason why I ask is like they already got like the people who are following the manga at this point are already kind of like already got like hindsight as to what's coming up next at least. So it's like so I'm pretty sure too there's a lot of fatigue coming from like that camp as well that's following the manga where it's just like okay, can we like can they at least do Poseidon now, or can we like if this is what you're gonna replace with Poseidon, like can you like where's the thing that's gonna like where when is the Poseidon that's gonna connect to Poseidon gonna be coming, when is that stuff gonna be taking in? And I think this is the part where it's like it was too little too late for the audience. It was too little too late for like the team to do something about that. There was like no real course correction. Like you were kind of like they were kind of already like locked in with all this, and that's where I think that the biggest flaw where they I think that there was audience fatigue coming from like just how the ridiculous some of the things were starting to happen, and also like the people that were following the manga more closely were starting to like feel fatigued because like, they wanted to get to the point where they would get caught up. But any other thoughts on these episodes in general, Jackie?
They just probably had to, if a lot of this was already planned out too, so maybe even if they knew that ratings were going down, maybe these episodes were already done, so they just have to go through with them.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
By all means, I'm sure they have the general plot of the story, so
but
it's like
it was already known already that this was already all kind of like laid out at this point, anyways. But but that's information that at the time was only prevalent to like the people that were working on it, and that's it. Like the viewer doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, so it's a shame though. I mean, all jokes aside, and until now, I would have never realized that. One thing, it's my personal opinion is one thing for learning how much it damaged the franchise. It's like wow, it is mind blowing. I mean, I would have never known that it actually caused the cancellation of the anime. But I mean, ultimately, they did complete. They went all the way through, at least through Poseidon.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that was the plan for them from the very start. It's like, look, we're gonna do this, but we're kind of committed also to Poseidon at this point as well. So
yeah.
Any final?
Well,
one.
It is what it is. No, I'm good.
All right. Any final thoughts, Mechas?
Yeah, I actually find it very tragic, the fact that I think, ironically, this was the Alberic fight for me. I would even say that the Hagen fight was probably the turnaround point for this arc. Here's the thing, like I have a very complicated love-hate relationship with this arc, because when I was a kid, I loved it, right? Like unconditionally, didn't think about it too much, blah blah blah. Then, as the years goes by and the whole like nostalgia, X factors, people's opinions online, blah blah blah, gets to me, I kind of like go very negative towards this arc. It had been years since I actually saw it, because the last time that I tried to saw it, I felt very fatigued in the beginning trying to go through with it, and I just skipped all the way to Poseidon. Now that I'm actually sitting and watching it with a more open mind, I think that I had back at the time, it's kind of a shame because I think that it started very well, then it became very, very, very tedious. It dragged out quite a bit, particularly with the Fenrir fight. I think that was the worst part of the arc so far. And then now, finally, that the series, even though it is flawed, because it's very flawed when it comes to the writing, but it's becoming entertainingly flawed. Even though there are criticizable flaws, you can be entertained and you can have fun with them, because all of these episodes have been very fun. I don't want to give people the impression that I didn't like this episode. To the contrary, I love the Alberic fight. I like all this episode so far, but you can clearly see the many flaws that come with it. But it's a shame that at that time and at that point, people in general, and particularly the Japanese audience at the time, started to kind of like drip out of the series because of that. Because and it's a very terrible shame, because I think that this is the point where the arc finally kind of starts to turn around and become more interesting and more entertaining to watch overall. So it's a real shame that that happened, and that ended up becoming like the one of the factors. It wasn't the factor, but it was one of the biggest factors that ended up affecting like the classic anime in general. It's a shame, really, because the episode is as stupid as it is. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah, and that was gonna be my thoughts. It's like, this is beyond fucking stupid. It is kids on the playground playing. Like they think that they're invincible, and then they're like, oh no, I got invincibility +1. No, I got invincibility +2. No, I got invincibility +3. Infinite. I got infinite +1. Infinite. It's that. It's like two kids at a playground thinking that they can one up the other guy, and they refuse to like back down. And so like they quadruple dip. That's so they quadruple like they quadruple down everything that they're saying, just so they can prove a point. And like I said, there's some really bad flaws with this arc. There is some really bad flaws, like there's like the stuff with Marin, and the stuff like what how this could have like how this is all kind of like causing like bad ratings, stuff like that. But it's not to say either that now that we're looking at this kind of what this kind of like how we are right now, kind of like looking at this and laughing at this, that we're not having fun. I'm not having fun with this either. And I think like if you're going in, if you're gonna go into this arc, you kind of have to lower your expectations. Like, this isn't the best arc in the universe. But if you go in thinking like this is complete and utter schlock, like this is just this is bad for bad sake, I think you get some sort of enjoyment. I think we're getting to that point where it's going to get really enjoyable for all the wrong reasons. All right, guys. Like, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we head out?
Yeah, I did mention. I do apologize. Unfortunately, I didn't really get around to talking about some of my plans for the concert itself. So
yeah, so
to make
your floor is all yours.
Okay. I will try to post some more preview pictures during the week. But what I've got, for the concerts, I'll be passing out some goodie bags with, candies. But here's the fun part: a lot of these are gonna have some special prices. What can you get? There'll be things like, and this is actually official merchandise as well, some handcrafts I made myself, but there might be some badges, some mini stationery things, and what else did I have? They'll definitely have one of the things I added. This is gonna be completely random what you get. There'll be some postcards as well. And if you're listening, hopefully, especially if there's any cosplayers out there, I would love to be able to take your picture for the podcast, and we'll definitely give you a shout out and put it up on the podcast account. And anybody that comes talk to me, say hi. I'll definitely give you a goodie bag, and what you'll get you don't know. And honestly, I'm part of it. I forgot what I already put in some of these bags, but what I would like to see, whoever gets one of these baggies, just take a picture of what you get, and I will give you a preview of some of them, some of the stuff I made too. And
I do know for a fact that I did send out a few stickers your way to put in the bag. So
yeah, definitely, yeah. Everybody's definitely gonna get a sticker minimum if you get one of the goodie bags. But I'm trying to, hopefully my goal is to at least every goodie bag, maybe I can put a little something extra more than just candy. But it's just think of it like this. It's a way to say thank you for listening to us blabber on, and hopefully you have fun listening to us, and just come and say hi.
Yeah, don't be afraid. We are like Jackie and Benkers are two amazing people. I cannot stress this enough. Highly enjoyable people to be around. Just go up to them, say hi, talk to them for a few minutes. Don't bother them too much. Know kind of like your distance and stuff like that. Like when it comes to like what about like things and stuff like that. And they're really cool people. And like I said, the Saint Seiya community is very cool and very like very helpful to everybody. And I really do sincerely, like I said this off stream, but I'm sincerely, very sincerely grateful that you're doing this for the show, because
Yeah.
this is like, even though this is my project, it's everybody. This is all our project. This is Bankhouse's project. This is your project. But even though it has my name on it, and I do a lot of the footwork, I appreciate, and I do appreciate that you're going to this extra effort to do more, especially in such a big event. And like I said, like this is so, like, we've done like it's so good, because like this year it's like we can say that this year we did a lot of Saint Seiya stuff, related stuff, at different places.
Yeah.
We did.
The timing was there. Last year this was even way before I even knew I was gonna be joining the podcast. I wanted to go to the concert, and that's just how life happens. Things line up. I joined the podcast, and I just got some crafting stuff, and it just had that spark of imagination, and everything's being you know coming down the line. Also, let me add that Bankas is also going to be passing out stuff. I'm not doing all the work by myself, so if you don't see me, if you find Bankas, he's going to be giving out stuff too.
Yeah, but unfortunately, like we're like only that's the only thing we'll leave it at that for right now. We're just like, he's gonna leave. So, but yeah, like,
I mean, he'll have some of the same goodie bags that that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So we'll split. Like, if for some reason you can't find me, Bankas will also be out there handing out some of the stuff.
Yeah.
On my behalf.
Yeah. So
indeed, if you happen to come by in the concert and you happen to spot me by, please be sure to come and say hi. The last year I had the opportunity to meet Alex, one of the listeners of the podcast, who is a great guy, and I hope to get to see again in this September. But if anybody else that is listening has the opportunity, please do so. I'd love to meet anybody at the concert.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
we want to meet you.
Yeah, I wish I was going, but unfortunately, just things didn't work out. But hey, I at least I can say, at least I got to do San Diego Comic-Con. I got to do WonderCon, and I got to do a lot of stuff for the movie as well, when concerning that. So at least I got that underneath my at least I got that underneath my belt, at least.
Yeah, and for those of you that can't make it, nonetheless, we'll do what we can at our end, to share pictures, posts, and definitely gonna, if possible, I'll try to take some videos, because obviously, being at out of the US event, it's hard, not everybody can make it there. So the whole thing is, what makes it worthwhile the efforts that we get to share it with you. So you get a little bit of taste of, what else is out there as far as Saint Seiya.
That sounds really good. Alrighty then, guys. Thank you so much for all of that. Is there anything else you would like to promote, like, outside of Saint Seiya, Jackie?
Actually, I just want to promote an artist that she did a commission for me. I just posted it about 20 minutes ago or so. Her name is Art Athe. I'm gonna spell it out. She's on Twitter at ART_ATHE. She does some really incredible Saint Seiya art. And the picture that I just posted is a commission with my Santia, my friend Santia, and as a handmaiden to Athena, and Athena's in it. She can do armor, she can do all types of commissions, so definitely check her out. She's actually taking commissions right now as it is. Like, she has a special going on for 2 characters, so go check her out. She's wonderful.
I left a link on our. I'll leave a link to all that information on our show notes, and I also posted a link to the image on the Twitch. If you're here on Twitch, if you want to check that image out, I just posted.
Great.
I posted.
Thanks.
I just posted it there too. So advantage for those of you who are watching on Twitch, if there's a link that we want to put up, you will see it there first. Becca, do you have anything else you want to promote? Anything from outside of Saint Seiya? Anything in general you want to talk about?
Not for the moment. I have been taking a little bit of a break when it comes to posting things online, but I am gonna return. I'm just taking a little bit of a break, but I'll be sure to let you know once I start doing things.
You're at a better place right now. Trust me. Don't right now, everything's a tire fire. Just stay as far away as you can. As for me, I'm doing a lot of things. Of course, I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing Saturday Morning Squad. We'll be back this Friday, as of Friday the. Let's see here. I want to say it's the 15th. We're gonna be doing a recording. We haven't hammered things down yet, but I think we're gonna do an episode based on FPS. But I think we might do something else as well. Who knows? But that seems to be our theme. That seems to be the theme for that episode. So be on the lookout for that at our other show, the Saturday Morning Squadron. Um, I do. If you're following here on Twitch, I do a lot of Gunpla. I do a lot of model kits. I'm really enjoying my time doing model kits. I just recently did the Sengoku Astray. I'm gonna continue work on the Sengoku Astray, even though I did finish it like building. I still need to do a few extra things to it. Because there's not really much to do to the paint wise, but there's stuff I want to do to it. I want to put in some details. I do want to put some. I want to put some cement. I want to put some rubber cement on it so I can seal some parts in. So I'm gonna do that process on stream so you guys can so I can at least have something because I'm not sure what I want to work on just yet. So this gives me time to think of something. And I do a lot of other game streams as well. There might be a little collab stream soonish. We're still trying to hammer out the details, but there might be a collab stream soon. So be on the lookout for that. And when that happens, hey, well, not, you all will be the first to know about it. Hopefully, you'll know that information soon enough. All right, then, guys. Thank you so much for listening. For Benkos, for Jackie, I'm Ramses. I'm here to tell you to keep burning that cosmos. We'll keep in contact. We'll keep in contact with everybody. Stay safe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
See you next time.
All right. Alrighty. All right, then, guys. Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna do something here on my own. Because I have an urge to do a randomizer for a few minutes for about an hour or two. So look, I'm gonna eat something here really quick. Say my goodbyes to you guys. Let me put up something here really quick. Well, I